G'day cocktail lovers. I'm a huge fan of the old-fashioned cocktail, as anyone who watches me regularly will know. And what's really interesting to me about the old-fashioned is you're not limited to whiskey. In pretty much any bar in the world, if you just order an old-fashioned, you're going to get a whiskey old-fashioned. But technically, an old-fashioned is any spirit with sugar and bitters. And I think the spirit that's probably least considered in the realm of old-fashioned is gin. And that's a shame because there's such diversity in gins around the world, particularly in Australia at the moment. There's a lot that lend themselves to gin, particularly the slow style gins. Now, slow gin is a very specific thing in England. It's not S-L-O-W, as a lot of people think. It's S-L-O-E. It's the slow berries, which are berries from the blackthorn bush. That is being used to make a fruity gin. Slow gin in the UK is usually lower ABV and quite sweet. Now, the fruity gins in Australia cover a whole spectrum. Some of them are like slow gin, they're lower ABV and sweeter. Some are full strength gins, as in 40% or more ABV, and there's a diversity of elements that are used to flavour the gins. And notably in Australia, a lot of the distillers are very fond of using native plants and botanicals. This one actually plays with the slow gin idea. They spell it S-L-O-W, Slow Passion Gin. This is from Cape Byron in New South Wales. Now this is 26% alcohol by volume, so this is very much in line with the British slow gins. And what do they use? They use, besides passion fruit, as it obviously says, they also use, among other things, an Australian native called the Davison plum, or at least that's the coloniser name for it. And that is one. This is a quite different one that's made in a distillery about an hour or so drive from me, the Bass and Flinders distillery. They call this their Shiraz gin. The ingredients on this, besides the obvious juniper, they use botanicals like hibiscus rosella, which is a native Australian, cherries, raspberries, and a hint of orange. They're going for a Turkish delight kind of feeling here. And with 40% ABV, this has got quite a bit more punch. This is from another local distillery, about half an hour's drive from me, Brogan's Way. They do a few fruit-flavoured gins. This one is their passion fruit gin. It's lighter than that one, but just barely at 38% ABV. So again, much stronger than your average slow gin, but it's a great taste. This one's a real taste sensation. This is from the Anther Distillery, which is in Geelong, which is about an hour and a half away from me. This is a limited run they put out recently. They do a cherry gin every year. They apparently have a big cherry pitting party with friends and family where they all get covered in cherry juice as they pit the cherries for that year's cherry gin. This one is actually a blended black cherry and chocolate gin. And it's incredible. It's 30% ABV. There's juniper, of course, cacao nibs, orris root, nutmeg, vanilla, finger lime, which is a native Australian, and cassia bark. So there's just incredible array of tastes in this one. Another thing a lot of gin makers are doing are incorporating wine or wine flavours into their gin. This one is from Four Pillars, again about an hour and a half away from me. Their Bloody Shiraz gin. To describe how they do it, they celebrate the arrival of a new harvest. Their distillery is actually in the middle of wine country. I've got the special arty bottle as well. This is not the normal bottle it's sold in. But yeah, they work with a local vineyard to get Shiraz grapes and incorporate that into the gin distilling to get this very blood red colour. Fun story. Apparently when they were trying to get this into America, it was being held up by the Food and Drug Administration and they didn't know why. And they eventually said, "Why is it taking you so long to approve it?" And they go, "Well, what sort of blood do you use? And at what stage of the distilling is blood involved?" They had to explain the Australian sense of humour, like, no, it's bloody. It's not, there's no blood. There's no blood. This is the one I'm going to actually make an old-fashioned with today. Pretty straightforward. In a mixing glass, I'm going to put 2.5 ounces of the Bloody Shiraz gin, about 10 mils, a third of an ounce of sugar syrup. If you've got a fruity sugar syrup, all the better, and 2 dashes of cranberry bitters. And then I'm going to stir that for about 20 to 25 seconds to chill and dilute it. I'm going to strain that into a rocks glass over one of my big pieces of clear ice, and I'm going to use my favourite garnishes, a twist of orange peel and a cocktail cherry. Another benefit of doing a fruity gin old-fashioned, it looks fantastic, particularly this one. I picked the Bloody Shiraz Well, first, because it tastes great, but second, it looks really good as an old fashioned. And as for the taste, this has a great balance of traditional gin and then wine and fruit flavors. It's a really nice change from a whiskey old fashioned. As much as I love them, I like a little bit of a change now and then as well. And honestly, distillers around the world are getting so creative with what they do with gins. Almost wherever you are in the world, I feel sure there's going to be someone not far from you doing something really interesting with gin. I recommend you get out there, find them, try it, and if you've never done a gin old fashioned, you should give it a go. I think it's really worth it. And I hope to see you again soon. Until such time as I do, cheers.